Right, boys and girls, it is Friday and it's the last day of doing our home learning before you all come back to school on Monday, and I can't wait to see you. And do I have a treat for you today? I'm going to share with you the last chapter of our book, The Enchanted Classroom, and it's called Chapter 7, The Last Day of Term. Erica had had a restless night. She had this feeling in her stomach that she just couldn't place, like something was going to happen, something big, something exciting. And of course, that was more than likely as Erica went to Berriton Primary. Her teacher was Miss Hart and her classroom was the Enchanted Classroom, where exciting and magical things happened all the time. It was the last day of the spring term and Erica could not believe her first term had gone by so fast. She wolfed down her breakfast even faster than normal and helped Mum get Timothy dressed and ready to go. She grabbed the bunch of daffodils off the kitchen table, which her mum had bought for Miss Hart, and she headed out of the door. She was already waiting at the school gates when Mr. Whiteley came out in his smart overcoat and scarf and stood back to let everyone in. "Good morning, Erica," he said as she marched past him grinning and straight to the classroom with a spring in her step. "Hello, Miss Hart," Erica said, approaching her as soon as she entered the classroom. "Thank you for teaching me," Erica said, beaming up at Miss Hart and holding out the daffodils. "Oh, Erica, thank you so much. That's so kind and thoughtful of you." Miss Hart smiled down at her. "It has been so lovely since you joined the class. It's like you've always been here." Erica felt the same. She was so happy at Berriton Primary and couldn't believe how lucky she'd been to join the Enchanted Classroom. As today was the last day of term, Miss Hart had a special treat for the class. "Boys and girls," she called once they had all arrived, "the frogs are going home early today, so we're going to have to make our own snack." The children looked a little confused. "We're going to make gingerbread men," she announced with a flourish. The children cheered with delight and a few of the boys punched the air with excitement. Everyone loved baking. "We'd better get started straight away, though," Miss Hart told the class, "as the gingerbread men will need time to cool and then we must decorate them before snack time." Miss Hart sent the children to wash their hands whilst she wiped the tables and the frogs all hopped around getting the ingredients out before heading home. The tables and chairs sprouted feet and walked themselves into a big semicircle so all the children could stand around them and work together. Even Mr. Jaffa rolled out of the fruit bowl, bristling his leafy moustache to watch the children do their baking. Working in pairs, the children weighed and mixed the ingredients, then squished the dough into a ball with their hands. Jack accidentally knocked a whole bowl of flour onto the floor, which caused chaos when Mungo, the invisible dog, walked straight through it and started trailing white, floury footprints all over the classroom. The cleaning fairies were not very impressed, and they huffed and puffed and tutted loudly whilst following him around with their little mops. Once the dough was rolled out, Miss Hart produced 2 little cutters, 1 gingerbread girl and 1 gingerbread boy. "I'm going to do a boy," Emily whispered to Erica, "and cover him from icing, from head to toe." "Oh, great idea," Erica replied. "I think I'll do a girl so they can be brother and sister. Shall we use jelly tots to decorate them or Smarties?" "Both," Emily laughed, licking her lips. The gingerbread boys and girls were carefully slid onto trays and Miss Hart took them to the kitchen to be baked. Then, 20 minutes later, they were back, ready to be decorated. The children mixed bowls of different coloured icing and spread it all over the biscuits, then added details with sweets. "Done," Emily proclaimed proudly, looking down at her little gingerbread boy. She had clearly worked very hard on him and most of the sweets had been used. He had an icing shirt, shorts and boots, with jelly top buttons, a jelly top nose, raisin eyes and a mouth made of a strawberry bootlace. He looked delicious. "I'm going to call him Icing," she told Erica. Erica's little gingerbread girl was decorated with yellow icing and plenty of Smarties, making the dress look like it was covered in multicoloured spots. The girls popped their gingerbread biscuits onto a plate and wandered over to Nora to see how her decorating was going on. Nora had chosen to make a gingerbread girl too, but instead of covering her in icing and sweets, she was piping the icing very carefully on in intricate patterns. "Wow, Nora," Erica exclaimed. "That's brilliant. I had no idea you were so good at this." Emily added, with a hint of jealousy in her voice. Oh, I really do love baking, Nora replied. My mum loves baking as well as sewing, so we often make things together at the weekend, but decorating is definitely my favourite part. Just as Erica was moving towards Roger to take a look at his amazing gingerbread pirate, Miss Hart clapped her hands in that rhythmic pattern she always does when she's asking the children to quieten down and listen to her. The children froze in response and all turned to her. OK, boys and girls, she said. Time to head back to your desks to tidy up. Then we're going to take our gingerbread biscuits outside and enjoy them in the sunshine. Everyone headed back to their desks with excitement, and they quietly and studiously started tidying up. But then the silence was quickly interrupted by a shriek. Ah! It was Emily. What's wrong? Erica asked, dashing over to her side. Icing has vanished. Someone must have stolen him, Emily replied, rather dramatically. Erica looked down and she was right. Icing, Emily's gingerbread man, had vanished. But as well as that, Erica's gingerbread girl was upside down with crumbs all around her. There was jelly tots scattered all over the table. The pencil pot had been emptied and poor Rub Rub was lying on his side surrounded by pencils smeared with white icing with a rather perplexed look on his face. What on earth had happened? Miss Hart appeared at Erica's side and looked down at the mess. Erica? Emily, what have I told you about keeping your desk tidy? She scolded them. But it wasn't us, Miss Hart, Erica replied. We put both our gingerbread people on the plate and the pencils and the sweets were tidy. I promise, she pleaded. And whoever made this mess, Emily added, has stolen my gingerbread man. Then she folded her arms and looked rather cross about the whole situation. Just as Miss Hart was opening her mouth to reply, a scattering noise followed by a bump came from the corner of the room. Everyone turned to look in the direction the sound had come from, and there, sitting in the middle of Miss Hart's desk, was Emily's little gingerbread man, Icing. He was leaning against a jar of overturned paper clips, which he had knocked over, and was holding a jelly tot in each hand. As everyone watched in silence, Icing stood up, stretched out one of his arms, and chucked a jelly tot into the air. As it rose above his head, he threw the second one up, and as quick as lightning, he pulled a third off his tummy and chucked it into the air too. Then, quite expertly, he started to juggle the jelly tots while staggering around Miss Hart's desk. What's going on? And who are you? Miss Hart exclaimed, approaching the desk and speaking directly to Icing. But Icing only grinned up at her and popped one of the jelly tots into his mouth. Icing! Emily called out, running over. She reached her hand out flat and Icing hopped on. Hi there, Emily said, bringing him up to her face. What are you doing over here? Icing, still chewing on his jelly tot, reached up and booped Emily on the nose. Boop! Everyone giggled, and even Miss Hart, who was still a bit shocked by the mess on her desk, broke into a smile. It looks like you won't be eating your gingerbread man, Nora called over to Emily. No way, said Emily. Icing isn't going anywhere. Why don't we clear up Icing's mess and then find somewhere for him to stay? Miss Hart added, kindly, smiling at Emily and Icing, who was now perched up on Emily's shoulder. The children got straight to work and the classroom was tidy in no time. Even the fairies were pleased and they flew around the room twice, admiring how tidy it was. Miss Hart helped Emily make a little house out of an empty shoebox, and Erica found a small wooden bed, sofa and a fake plant in the old doll's house box, which made Icing's shoebox feel more like a home. They perched the box up on a shelf in the classroom and Icing hopped in, as pleased as Punch. When at last it was time to take the gingerbread biscuits outside to eat for snack, Emily had one of the spares which Miss Hart had made just in case. How lucky! It was delicious and made even tastier by the extra jelly tots Icing had put on at the last minute. The rest of the day flew by as Miss Hart filled the day with exciting activities, all of which Icing joined in with. The class went on a spring walk around the school grounds. Icing sniffed a bluebell and did such a big sneeze that one of his raisin eyes popped out. They painted pictures of the Easter bunny, but Icing tried to help Emily and ended up putting 3 ears onto the bunny and a long pink tail. Just before they went home, Miss Hart read the class the story of the gingerbread man, which got Icing very excited. He danced around in the middle of the circle, acting out every part, but when it got to the end, he covered his little ears and refused to listen to the bit when the fox ate up the gingerbread man. "Don't worry," Emily whispered to him. "I won't let anything happen to you." When Erica's mum collected her from school, she asked if anything exciting had happened that day. Erica didn't really know how much to tell her, so she just answered, "Just the normal stuff, I guess." "But are you happy to have joined Brereton Primary, Erica?" her mum asked her. "Yeah, I love it," Erica replied. "I have had the best term ever." Little did Erica know that there was still so much for her to discover next term. She hadn't met the little stray kitten who lived in the bushes behind the classroom, or the flying elf who leaves sparkles on the desks at night, and she most definitely had not discovered the magic button, which changes anything on your plate into a pudding. But I think she would enjoy that, don't you? I hope you enjoyed the final chapter of the Enchanted Classroom, and thank you so much for all the ideas that you've been sending me this term. I hope you've been able to spot your characters and exciting events as they've popped up in the different chapters. And I cannot wait to see you back at school on Monday. See you then.